Welcome. Begin to make any adjustments you need to in your space. Begin to find the physical position that you'd like to meditate in today. And while we're waiting for others to join, you can just start by turning your attention within, breathing deeply and consciously. Just taking your time and settling in. We'll begin in just a couple of minutes. And so anyone who's here and wants to write down in the chat box where you're here from, I always enjoy that. And just see as you are arriving if you can notice who's here today. And that's an internal inquiry. Just noticing through what lens you are perceiving the world as you arrive to our meditation. And I see we've got friends from Portland, Oregon today, and Santa Barbara, Houston, Texas, Lakeville, Ontario, North Carolina. So before we get started, I will just first remind people that this will be grounding for the next Tuesdays to come, but starting this week on Thursday for 4 weeks instead, we'll have a session called Waking Up Together, which will involve both some meditation and really rich group discussion, but it will be a time that includes relational mindfulness practice in small groups. If you'd like to join us for the next 4 Thursdays for that offering, which is also free and donation based, make sure that you sign up by tomorrow, Wednesday, through my website, as it's being hosted by an organization called Sangha Live. So there will be a different link than this link, okay? So happy to be here with you, everyone. And as you settle in, I just invite you to begin to be aware of the backdrop of stillness, the already existing quiet. Just notice how, as you settle in, turn towards your breath, you begin to become more aware of the space within, the space surrounding you. And I'd like to start our meditation today just emphasizing the profound medicine of stillness in this time of grounding. Right now we are all sitting with complex history, which we have inherited, the 400 years of systemic racism that we are opening our hearts to even more fully right now in order to seed change. Just being with the complexity of being human, our emotional experience day in and day out requires stillness, okay? So it's stillness that can hold this complexity. It's stillness that has room for it. And please be clear that when I speak of this stillness, that is always with us if we turn our attention to it. This does not equate in any way whatsoever to passivity or inaction. So you might think of stillness as an energetic state. It is the state of we consciousness. It is the embodiment of present moment awareness, groundedness. Let's let our eyes rest now, either closed or open in a soft gaze. And just begin by taking in 3 deep, full body breaths. Inviting yourself to slow down and to generously invite your attention within. Just finding the anchor of your breath. And allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm. Acknowledge your connection with gravity, allowing gravity to support you to settle. And just begin to notice with curiosity rather than judgment. Notice the state of your mind in this moment. Perhaps your mind feels busy today or cloudy. Perhaps the mind feels clear. Just notice. And become even more aware now of your emotional body. Just noticing what feelings are moving through you. Perhaps you're arriving feeling already a calmness. And perhaps you're arriving present to a feeling of anxiety or a heavy weighted sadness. Perhaps there are some tremors of stress in your body today. So just continuing to rest with the anchor of your breath and to open to notice whatever is moving through you. Your job is simply to welcome, to feel and be with this human experience. Become even more aware now of physical body. Perhaps the subtle movement of muscles, the shape and weight of your body, resting on the surface beneath you. The air gently touching your skin. And be aware that just this gesture of noticing, of bringing curiosity to, and being with what is here, connects you more deeply to stillness itself. So as we continue, just settling deeper. Allow yourself to open even more fully to the experience of awareness itself. Remembering that the vastness, the boundlessness of stillness has room, has space to hold all of life. It is all inclusive. It does not welcome parts of you and push other parts out. It contains no judgment. It perceives interconnection rather than difference. You can remember as we meditate that there is nothing you need to do or make happen. Nothing to solve and nowhere to get to. We sit to remember what's here when we stop doing everything else. The simplicity of the peace that's here. The already existing quiet. And in tumultuous times like these, in times calling for change, it is not that we hide out in this peace. There is no hiding. Awareness itself opens up our field of sensitivity and sacred connectedness even more fully to all that is, to all beings everywhere. But it is ours to take refuge in this peace, to restore, to allow that everything that is being stirred to be held by loving presence itself, the most sturdy force in the universe, the most connecting force in the universe. And so that we may listen deeply and allow our actions, our conscious response to be guided by the greater good, to be guided by stillness. In a place where we have access to some skillfulness and discipline and wisdom beyond the reactivity or bounciness of the conditioned mind. If you notice while you're meditating today, effort, just invite a softening. If you notice physically any holding, invite a further softening. Just allow for it. Nothing to do. Please gently now allow your breath to begin to deepen. Just feeling the air as it enters your body, fills your body, and leaves your body. And please gently now turn your attention to gratitude. You're welcome to rest a hand at the center of your heart and just take a moment within yourself to connect deeply with your gratitude. Just acknowledging that which you do not take for granted. Noticing if it's easy or challenging to access gratitude today. Noticing how it feels in your body. And please be sure to include yourself in your appreciation. So let's all take in one more deep breath together, breathing in deeply, exhaling fully. So welcome. Let's all take a moment to just, within the field of silence, acknowledge the community that's here. We have people from all over the country, different parts of the world. So just acknowledging the beauty of this space, coming together for conscious community. And I want to say again, because some of you weren't here in the very beginning, that starting this week on Thursday, instead of grounding, which will continue to happen on Tuesdays, we'll spend the next 4 Thursdays doing a similar gathering called Waking Up Together. I see a question, so it will be just 1 hour together, time spent where I'll be guiding some relational mindfulness practice. So in addition to time with me, you'll get time with community members, either in dyads, groups of 2, groups of 3, doing some beautiful guided practices. If you want to join us for that, you have to sign up for a separate link other than this. And so go to my website and it'll direct you to Sangha Live. And you are invited to offer any donation, though it is free, to Sangha Live, which would support the organization hosting and me as teacher. So today, I want to first share that I posted this morning a new blog called If Not Us, Who? If Not Now, When? And it's offering 10 encouragements for healing systemic racism. And in addition to that blog, there's a post which offers a beautiful list of resources for deepening one's education during this time, one's embodiment, but also direct ways of supporting the Black community during this time. And so I'll share that over the weekend and through the process of writing that blog post, I spent time sitting with some pretty deep grief, some pretty profound emotions. And I imagine that so many of you here have been there with me. This is a time of such intense collective grief and outrage as well. So many people asking, so what are the next steps? What can I do to be a contribution? And I had some beautiful conversations with colleagues and friends of all ethnic backgrounds while I was moving through my own process. But one conversation that I had yesterday really landed powerfully for me. And it was with a Black colleague and leader who I deeply respect, when I was naming my experience and just tapping in with how tumultuous some of the emotions were that I was feeling in my body yesterday. He so beautifully reminded me of the medicine of grounding and named that his whole intention right now, 24 hours a day, is to ground, is to rest in awareness, reminding me of my own medicine. Always so good when we have friends in our lives who can remind us of our own medicine. And I really wanted to emphasize today the need for us to consider stillness, not in any way as the opposite of action. This is a time requiring real action and powerful action. And from the heart and from embodiment comes powerful action. It's only not powerful when it's disembodied, when it's guided solely by reactivity and not presence. But that stillness is the place we want to be nourishing right now within ourselves as we act and as we connect and as we deepen our own education and expand our awareness of how to be of service. Okay, so this is a collective inquiry right now. As we move into the group discussion today, I'll remind people that any and all questions are welcome. So there might be a question arising about your personal practice, about what you're working with individually. There might be a question that relates to the specific topic of healing racism, or what has been coming up in the mirror of the continuation of COVID-19. Everything is interconnected. Everything is welcome here. And I highly encourage your questions because, of course, we learn so much from one another's questions, and we learn so much from one another's willingness to participate. You know, Dharma practice calls us into full participation in life, full participation in our community, full participation in our own conscious choices. That means when we're not in full participation, we're likely to be in a primary relationship, an intimate relationship with the conditioned mind. And so participation is part of what calls us out of that. Just a little caveat for anyone who is, for instance, doing this meditation today while sick at home or dealing with a physical challenge or even COVID-19, which disallows you to participate in ways you'd like to. When I use the word participation, it's more a spiritual instruction to be part of the all that is, to show up as part of the field of interconnection, rather than just in our hiding out bubble. It can happen to us all at times of this conversation with conditioning. So that said, anyone who has a question, you can place it into the Q&A box, and Catherine is going to help us by reading questions today out loud. So everyone, just pause for a moment and allow your body to settle again, just connecting to the qualities of openness, receptivity, listening. Okay, Catherine, what's our first question today?
The first question is, I've heard several people express feeling guilty for caring for their own needs or wanting to experience joy and pleasure during this time. How would you speak to practicing self-care and experiencing personal happiness amidst the need of the world and the need to do activism work?
Thank you for that question. And I just want to share that during the time of COVID-19, you know, we've been doing these gatherings bi-weekly now since early March, I believe. And the question has come up every couple weeks, I would say, about guilt. So let's acknowledge together that it is such a strong part of collective conditioning that guilt serves, and that if I'm doing okay while there's stuff going on in the world, or if I'm experiencing joy, or whatever it is, if I'm in well-being while someone else is suffering from COVID-19, I should be feeling guilt. Very much an extension of a kind of, well, certainly of the Judeo-Christian philosophy. Does guilt really serve us in any way whatsoever is something for people to consider. From the lens and perspective of Buddhist practice, no, it does not. So I want to paint a picture of the difference between how we experience something like guilt and how we open ourselves from presence to feedback that's actually useful. I'm going to start indirectly and share that in Buddhism, the way that we talk about resentment is with the metaphor that resentment is like picking up a burning ember and throwing it at someone. It burns out completely before it hits the other person, but meanwhile, just in picking it up, it's already burnt us. Guilt is really, really similar. You picking up guilt, okay, and then clinging to guilt does nothing beneficial for the whole. You're then in a contraction instead of a present, open expansion. The guilt does nothing at all for the whole, but it's already contracted your energetic system. It's already impacted you. Guilt can actually be really juicy for the conditioned mind. And so I've witnessed again and again that people can, without knowing it, be using guilt to stay caught in a certain cycle where they're not showing up fully to life. As an example, then they get to feel guilt. They don't think of it as get to feel, but that's the response they get. And that's sort of all they're willing to give themselves. Here's the different picture I want to paint. And it's that when we're present and letting go of the world, because it's a world, it's a realm of judgment. It's the realm that judges. Stillness does not judge. When we're in presence, we are open to receiving natural feedback from life in the moment. That's where we learn. So let's say I've spoken in a way that wasn't so skillfully. Instead of going right to judgment and guilt about that, which then clamps me down and actually becomes a bit of an obstacle in front of my heart, instead of going to guilt, in that moment, I can actually feel, in my heart, the impact of having spoken a bit unskillfully. And that can inform me going forth in a powerful way so that I learn through my heart to not speak unskillfully. When I instead go to guilt or judgment, because they're two sides of the same coin, I'm blocked off from really receiving that helpful feedback. Instead, I'm going into a judgment and a story and a position around it, and I'm not going to learn as fast. So now going specifically to the question around in this time when we all need to take action and when there's so much. I mean, are we kidding that the violence we're seeing, even more murders of Black people? It is a disgrace. It is insane. It is so over the top painful to witness. And it is a reflection of 400 years. That's a long time of systemic racism in this country and an even longer history, which led to that. So I want to remind people that this is a time to be experiencing what is from our hearts and to be acknowledging that joy, well-being, these are forms of nourishment that we need. Not that we want. These are forms of nourishment that we need in order to be whole participants in serving the greater good. This is not a time for spiritual bypassing. So that means if you're seeking things that you think bring you joy or experiences as a way of turning away from really opening your heart to the pain, not such a good direction, not so helpful. There actually is no turning away ultimately. And that's not what we need right now. Then that's something you might want to look at. So spiritual bypassing is something to pay attention to. Yeah. Just for anyone who's newer to practice, it means when we use spirituality, spiritual practice to justify avoiding difficult emotion, shadow, a collective call to action, which is happening right now. But I know that for me, this is a time of wholehearted service. And the service that I've wholeheartedly given myself to is nourished by my willingness to experience the joy of connecting with my partner intimately and honestly and lovingly, fierce loving, fearless loving, the joy of connecting with the land we live on, the joy of engaging with and connecting with our global community wholeheartedly. So joy and grief are related. If we numb out one, we numb out the other. Okay? Let's all take care of ourselves. And please read the blog that I posted today. It offers and speaks directly to ways to take action which are useful. I had numerous conversations with colleagues, numerous conversations with Black leaders about how we can best be of service. And I know that so many of you here in this community are finding your ways to be of service. But this is a time for inner and outer engagement. Okay. Thank you for that question. Yeah. Yeah. Let's take in a breath together. Okay. And what's the next question?
Marianne, I want to donate money to an organization that wants to end systemic racism. Was thinking of donating money to Black Lives Matter. Do you believe that would be a good choice?
Yes, Black Lives Matter is an excellent choice. And they're on the resource list that I posted today. But in addition, there are some smaller organizations or even some more specific ways. There are two Dharma teachers and leaders who come to mind, one being Angel Acosta and one being another angel, Angel Kyoto Williams, also the work of Conda Mason. They're all listed. And donating through any of their work is a certainty to get money directly to Black communities, Black businesses, Black social enterprises that are needing resources during this time. There's even ways to donate to bail bonds to help people who have been protesting and gotten arrested get out. There's all kinds of ways to be of direct service. But yes, Black Lives Matter, hell yeah, that's what I would say. And read the resource list, okay?
Next question. Hi, Eden. Sorry. Lately, my identification has shifted from the small, separate self towards seeing myself in everything and across time. And there's also been a letting go of the control agenda. Something that's showing up for me as there's been a curious and warm moving toward everything that's here is that I've found a tremendously strong resistance toward experiencing the fear and pain that comes from identifying with the world. There's a real fear that if I allow myself to feel all of that suffering, I'll literally and physically be destroyed. And there's judgment for that being a silly fear. I'd very much appreciate your guidance with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Question appreciated. And first I want to acknowledge the third layer you named. So there's the expansion and letting go and experiencing yourself more and more as one with all that is, okay? Then there's this fear that arises at times, and then there's the judgment of the fear. So to start with the third layer, the judgment of the fear, as much as possible, see if you can let that go. When it comes up, just notice it. No need to judge the judgment that's there, but to know that it doesn't serve, to know that it is not useful on this path. It's really natural. It's really natural that as we're learning to let go and to settle more fully into the vast, boundless, beautiful, interconnected field of awareness, okay? that a part of us feels fear or even terror. Sometimes people have the experience as they're deepening meditation practice of dropping into what we often talk about as an emptiness, just empty space, a boundless awareness. It's not the realm. It's all about this and me and my conversation and the world that reflects that. There's like nothing to stand on there, and yet you're entirely held. That's scary terrain only for the ego. The ego's terrified of it simply because it's not the domain of the ego. The ego is separate self, okay? We're talking about boundless, limitless awareness. Know that it's not your fear, that it's ego's fear, and see if that gently begins to help you just stay on course, okay? And then you can also acknowledge, well, how do I want to be with someone who's afraid? When I look within myself at fear, it's the sense always of a really little person who's afraid, like a small child. And so I might just, through presence, let myself be the embrace of that small child. I might even imagine, if you want to get a little more visceral, letting the scared one sit on my lap while I relax into boundless awareness. So it's important to remember that it requires a lot of energy to maintain ego, and there's no energy going to that when we're dropping in to limitless, boundless awareness. So of course that's a scary place for ego, but it's not a scary place for your heart at all. It's home. It's home. So thank you for that question. Yeah. And everyone just pause and take a breath. Okay.
So there are three more questions.
Mm-hmm.
This one is regarding facing old trauma. I've been doing this conscious community here with you for weeks. I'm sensing new awakening through grounding. I'm feeling very agitated at the word racism. I'm clear that I've been compartmentalizing throughout my life. In my mind, although I realize not a loving or politically correct comment, I'm wanting only grounding. I'm noticing grief coming through as I've gotten still. I belong to an African American church for 7 years, one of 4 white people, and also in other communities with African Americans, or many who want to identify as Black. I'm feeling an intense desire to hold my identity as an autonomous person. I have over the years, in other circles or work, having challenges with the collective, the process, etc. I'm feeling obviously in Dharma practice, the desire presently to push through and empty with releasing the conditioned mind. Question: how do I continue to show up in interconnection when I'm getting enraged with the illusion of controlling outcomes?
How do I continue to show up in the field of interconnection when I'm getting, can you say the last part one more time? Enraged about?
When I'm getting enraged with the illusion of controlling outcomes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for that question. And thank you for sharing transparently your experience. And so I want to acknowledge first, the part of you who said, I'm here for grounding, and I'm feeling really triggered by some of the conversation or emphasis around the issue of racism. And so I think I want to address this in a way for everyone to relate to. How do we stay connected to the field of interconnection when we are really, really triggered by what we're experiencing, let's say, in that field? And let me just pause and look within for a moment. You mentioned trauma. So I just want to note that something I'm always aware of in this work is that there is an exquisite invitation through grounding, through finding stillness, through remembering that who we really are is stillness, this backdrop, the already existing quiet that is always here, that weaves through us, that knits us to one another, the space between our thoughts, the space between each breath, the space that can hold our experience. We're usually so focused on the stuff, the sticky, hot emotions, the intense thoughts, the reactive actions we want to take, that we can forget that which knits it all together. And so it can be really helpful when stuff starts coming up. There we are, we're grounding, we're finding more and more access to this sacred stillness. And then there's messy stuff that comes up. Sometimes we call it going further and faring worse. Sometimes people will have an experience of meditation and it's like, oh, I love this peace that I'm experiencing. But now what's going wrong? Because I'm starting to have all this messy stuff come up. But that messy stuff is our practice. That messy stuff is a reflection of the fact that the more we connect with the compassionate awareness that is our birthright, the more there's room for the unmetabolized pain to come up, for the unmetabolized trauma to be healed. The more there is for us to, the more room there is for us to see clearly ways that old conditioning may have been operating us, okay? And so we learn to, number one, not take so personally that which comes up, not take so personally the things that trigger us from other people, but to remain, as is the foundation of practice, very curious, open, which is more like a somatic state, open, and very committed to mindful inquiry. So looking within, when something from out there triggers us intensely, what exactly happens within me in the face of this? Part of me says, I wish this trigger wasn't there. I wish this wasn't happening. It's taking away my peace. It's taking away my ability to feel connected to the interconnected all that is. But we inquire in how exactly does it feel in my body in the moment when I am experiencing this? What exactly is the self-talk? What am I saying to myself when I get upset in this way, okay? And I'm perceiving the problem is out there. What feelings, beyond the one I already see, when I investigate more subtly, what's actually here and happening? So we bring what I would describe as, when I'm describing this curiosity, it's like bringing eyes of love and eyes of willingness to whatever messy human stuff is presenting itself to us. I'm going to pause for a minute. I can look back and remember times in my practice when it was like, oh, I'm finally getting more established with this field of peace. I'm so bothered that this stuff is coming up. Or now I'm suddenly in an environment where there's more difficult stuff to face, and I was bothered by it. But what happens over time is you simply become grateful for all of it, welcoming for all of it, because everything that comes up can be seen as a teacher of love. If your intention is that, is remembering who you are, is love, then everything that comes up is a teacher of love. So I'm answering your question a little indirectly because I want it to be applicable to everyone's experience here. But whatever it is that you're saying, I wish that thing wasn't coming up, or that thing is too painful for me to face, or that thing going on in the world right now is too much for me to hold. How is it your teacher of love right now? That's all of our work. Let's let it be that simple. How is it your teacher of love? And please remember, because language can be so limiting, please remember that love is not, well, it is not always soft and pink. It is not a Hallmark card. It is not a happiness that pushes away the darkness and holds on to the light. It is not, I get love when I get to finally slide into the romantic sunset ending of a lot of hard work. Love is not any of those things. Love actually is the stillness that I invited at the very beginning of this session. The backdrop, peace, of stillness, of all inclusive, nothing left out, compassionate awareness. It's who we are. But even when I say that, my intention is not ever for you to believe what I say, but please to experience it for yourself, to find out for yourself, to just be open and trusting to doing the practice and seeing or letting it lead you. Okay? So really rich questions today, and I want to appreciate everyone who's asking. Yeah. Maybe Catherine, you can let me know how many more questions we have.
Two more questions. Two more.
Okay, great.
So, question from Jennifer. I'm noticing unsettling in my system these last many days, fearful of COVID cases rising, wary of social distancing, wanting to be active in protests, and afraid of being in a crowd and the many dangers there. I feel anxious, unsure, dull, sad, fearful, and I'm noticing a lot of resistance to landing in this place once again. I know that my medicine is to ground, to care for myself in all of the ways, and to interact in community in a socially distant way. And yet, there is serious resistance to this living experience in this body and in this time right now. Intense discomfort in the resistance itself, let alone all that is just beyond that.
Okay. Thank you. And I want to first acknowledge a few of the things that were shared. Number one, yes, this COVID-19, it's going on and on. Cases are rising. In my state, we were feeling so sort of safe at first, and North Carolina is now considered a hot spot. And what I want to first underline is that you know that your medicine is to stay home right now and to be committed to social distancing and to take really good care and to ground. You know that that is your medicine. And it sounds like then in comes the second guesser or the voice of doubt, which makes you think, oh, but I should be doing something else, and I should be out there protesting, and I should be doing more. And as a rule of thumb for everyone here, please don't ever listen to the second guesser. Please don't. And please be discerning. what the voice is speaking with you. So you know how it feels when you actually know something, when something feels like this is true, that my medicine is to stay home and take care of this life, which is plenty, versus the energy of the second guesser, which might kind of poke and nudge and say, but that's what you should be doing, and everyone's judging you for not. And that's the first thing I want to remind you of. I had a rich conversation with a friend this weekend, and one of the things that we were talking about is this is another way to look at the medicine of diversity, is that in response to our collective situation, which if we chose to be born, to incarnate at this time, we came here for quite a situation, okay? We came here to be part of change, to be part of healing for stuff that's been going on for generations upon generations. There are diverse ways needed to respond. In this conversation with my friend, who's also a gardener like me, we were marveling at the teachings of polyculture, which is the value of planting a bunch of different kinds of plants and plants that grow different ways and help one another in different ways in one bed. It's an incredibly medicinal way of planting. It's something I love. And likewise, diverse response is needed now. When I'm working with people in the questions of like, what am I here for vocationally? And what is mine to contribute to the world? This notion of polyculture is really important to remember, because sometimes our mind creates these standards. It latches onto someone who's our hero and they're doing that work, so we should too, or someone who has more physical energy than we do and they're doing that work, so we should too. And it doesn't let us listen to what the instrument that we are is here for, because it confuses us by all the shoulds. And so in response to this stuff right now, yes, if you are the person who is out there protesting and that feels a full yes to that, go for it. I am so grateful for what you were doing. If you are like me, I've had a chronic health issue in my past, which makes it so that I am not taking any chances during COVID-19. I'm not taking any chances whatsoever. If you want to witness conservative response, it's how my husband and I are being. But I have young friends who feel really certain and solid that they can be out there on the front line right now, while others of us, I can be educating. I can be supporting us in grounding. I can be communing with my life here and my global community in the way that I do. There are myriad ways to respond. What is true for you? And again, similar to the conversation we had about guilt not too long ago, this is another one, the second guesser and the comparer and the should conversation. It's not helpful. It isn't helpful. So listen to what your own truth is right now and know that there are a million ways to respond. I'm going to remind people again to go to my website. There's a little tab. I think the tab is books and blog. Click on blog, read my new blog, and read the resource list. Find ways that if you are not feeling confident about being out there protesting, that you can contribute from home. There are a million ways. We're all needed now. And, you know, I will just remind us again, because we talked about joy a few minutes, our joy is needed now. Our love is needed now. Us being in care is needed now. I had a hard weekend with a lot of emotion coming through as I was sitting with this stuff, and just coming back to that place and being supported by my friends to come back to the place of staying grounded, staying centered, bringing love to every detail of my life right now, every detail of the garden, as well as the bigger whole. It's not either or. We need the collective consciousness to be nourished now with presence, with care, with kindness. Kindness is the biggest medicine. So in however you're choosing to act. Is it infused with kindness? Let it be that simple. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I believe there's one more. Is that it?
There's one more.
Okay.
Yes. I
Mhm.
just want to mention also that in the chat there's a lot of thank yous and words cannot express how I am so grateful
Thank
for
you.
all that you are giving to all of us. Your teachings, your warmth and kindness are so appreciated. So there's a lot of appreciation in um, being expressed. So for the last question, I feel odd starting conversations with people during everyday life. I have always been very shy. Before I began meditation, I think I would make it clear by my body language I wasn't trying to talk. Now I feel more open to others and general space. We have a big dog park where I live, and I find recently people being drawn to sit or stand near me, but I don't know what to say. I don't want to speak to someone in case they don't want to be bothered. I've always avoided small talk because I'm shy and I feel when I do it, it's not genuine. Do you have any advice for genuine small talk to connect with others?
Absolutely. Yes. And first, two practical encouragements. If you are free on Thursdays, I would sign up for Waking Up Together, because that's a beautiful way to be guided through some opportunity to connect with others. Sure, it's through Zoom, but folks, this is a portal for intimacy. If you haven't noticed, it's just about the quality of presence we bring. And so to sign up for that, because that will offer some of the teachings on relational mindfulness. And then I'm offering a 2-month course in relational intelligence, which begins after that, called Presence, Courage, Collective Awakening. And that could be really, really good for you. Or my book on relational mindfulness could be a good starting point too. But I want to first acknowledge the shift that you named. That's really neat that there has been an internal shift. And the more one cultivates presence and spaciousness within, the more other humans, even animals, other beings are drawn to you. They're just drawn to you. They're drawn to the presence, the space, the open heart. In your question, I heard kind of an assumption that small talk is um, the, the way to go, but something you don't like, so there's limitation. Or there are so many choices beyond small talk that even short, casual conversation can hold. But it's just about learning how to engage from presence and through the heart. You can have short, casual conversations with anyone that don't have to feel a thing like small talk. Um, it feels a bit like a big topic to get into right now, but would you be willing to let me know in the chat box if you might be able to show up on Thursdays for our 4-week training? Because that would certainly offer you a lot. The things that I'll say right now are just, before any conversation, especially if we're noticing a story and the story says small talk. Oh, good. Okay, I'm glad to see your answer. Small talk is what's expected of me and I don't know how to do it, or we're showing up feeling a little self-conscious, or we can always approach interactions, as we can approach any activity in life, with the first question I asked upon arriving today: through what lens am I perceiving? Who's here? So we bring awareness within first and notice, oh, anxiety is here. Or, oh, the one who doesn't know what to do is here. Just that, just acknowledging more consciously, begins to create more space around that. So there's more room for choice. And I'm not going to say too much more now because I know you're going to be there on Thursday. I want to be mindful of our time, but I really appreciate everyone's questions. Anyone who is able to offer Donna a small donation for these teachings, that deeply supports my work, my assistant, these teachings deeply supports. And you can do that on my website, deborahedentall.com, just where it says donate. and donations are all tax deductible. And I would like to first just really thank everyone, always. The recordings for these are available through the Deepening Practice Program. And I'd like to end by closing our eyes for a minute, appreciating yourself for being here today, and appreciating one another. And let's offer the merit of our practice today together, the kindness in this space, the wisdom and vulnerability, the willingness for change and growth to all beings everywhere. Taking in one more deep breath together now. Breathing in deeply and letting go. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.